So, morning. So is this drill, is dealing with press and junket and all of that stuff, was it ever fun for you? Is it still fun for you? Or is it
Well,
part of the job?
we don't do it all the time. I mean, I haven't done a junket in 5 years, so it's interesting to see how the technology changes.
That's true. But is the muscle group of actually dealing with us changed over the years, or are you...
Well, you're not the reviewers, so you tend to say, the first thing you always say is, I really like the movie, whether you saw it or not.
Right.
Doesn't make any difference. And to put me at ease, and then you ask me whatever questions you want to.
There you go. So, I'm actually curious, you've been out doing this for 50 years. You've actually made your first film just over 50 years ago.
That's correct.
What made you want to do this in the first place? What made Brian DePalma director?
I discovered I had a talent in college, and I just sort of kept at it. I started out as a kind of a computer nerd. I designed computers when I was in high school, won a couple of science fairs. When I went to Columbia, I majored in physics and Russian. But then I saw all these movies and got involved with the Columbia Players, met a very influential teacher at Sarah Lawrence College, and got into the movie world.
So was there a lot of equipment at the school at that time? Was there such thing as film school? Or
No,
anything?
not at Columbia. No, but I was able to do dramatic stuff at Sarah Lawrence, and we ultimately, Wilford, the teacher, and I taught a film class.
So how did you go about doing? I mean,
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. He's a computer nerd. You're going to do physics and Russian. Wow. I can maybe kind of see that, how he constructs his movies. Very methodical, very deliberate. You know, like he likes to have like the, the split screen. Something about that seems very, more like an engineer. That's interesting.
was it?
You got a camera.
So where did you get a camera? Where did you get your first camera to shoot your first movie?
Well, to tell you the truth, I hawked all my science fair prizes, which consisted of, I had a frequency generator and an oscilloscope, and I hawked them all and bought a Bolex.
And was there any, I guess there was no money around, no funding,
No.
as it were.
Yes, but I came from a healthy middle-class family, so I was able to raise some money, $1,000 over a period of a year, or in order to get started on my first short.
And at what point did it begin to feel like a profession or a career that you might have?
Well, there was this Cinema 16 avant-garde film society run by Amos Vogel in New York, and they had a prize for the best short every year. And the first year I submitted my first short, lost. The second year I submitted my second short and lost. The third year I submitted my third short, Wotan's Wake, and won.
And that was it? You were on your way at that point?
Well, I won that, and then I won a prize by the Museum of Modern Art for the best short directed by a director under 25. So I had arrived.
And so did it really feel like you could go to Hollywood? I mean, what was your approach to actually becoming a professional, as it were?
Well, then I struggled in the 60s making documentaries for the Treasury Department, for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I made a documentary about op art for them and sold called The Responsive Eye. And I made I shot my first feature in the summer of '63, couldn't get it released. I shot my second feature in the summer of '66. That played for 2 weeks at a theater in downtown Manhattan. And my third feature, Greetings, was a hit. though, of course, I got panned in the New York Times so badly that somebody wrote an editorial.
See, I don't think I've seen a movie of his before Carrie. He did one. I was just looking at the IMDb, Obsession. I think it was the same year of Carrie that was released, or the year before. And he did a couple before that, but I haven't seen them. But as you know, since Carrie and everything after, I've seen most of it because I'm a huge fan of De Palma. But yeah, like the way he constructs movies, like he's like, I've heard him downplay this because people say, oh, he copies Hitchcock, and he probably doesn't like that, but his movies do feel very Hitchcockian, and but like an engineer, like everything's very deliberate, and he plays the audience, you know, like a fiddle. But I guess the best directors do that, but I think De Palma really does that very well.
A letter to the editor said, how could you possibly greet greetings like that? So that suddenly turned around what I thought was going to be another losing feature, and Greetings was quite a success.
So at that point, had you given, I mean, it sounds like you were a man of many interests through college, and
Oh no, I was very focused on what I was doing.
it was just all that was the whole
It
thing?
was all movies, and you know, trying to keep my grades up high enough so I wouldn't be drafted.
Oh, that's interesting. So staying in school was important just to stay out of the war?
Yeah,
No small thing.
yeah. My Greetings was all about how to dodge the draft.
So
That's now I want to watch it. That's hilarious. I've watched a bunch of interviews with De Palma. He just seems like a really cool, kind of laid back guy. Like you could have a beer with, you know. Like he kind of just seems like a normal guy. But he's funny though.
did you feel like you were ever welcomed into Hollywood, or have you always been an outsider who...
I arrived at Hollywood. I got offered this kind of absurdist comedy called Get to Know Your Rabbits, starring Tommy Smothers. He decided he disliked the film about halfway through and became almost impossible to direct. One day he just disappeared. We sat around and shot close-ups of cards until he came back a couple of days later. Ultimately, I finished it, and I thought there were problems. I had some ideas how to fix them.
Yeah, I think he's never gotten the proper respect. Like, I don't know, maybe he was nominated for Untouchables, but I mean, he's made so many great movies, and yeah, I think like he's just kind of, I don't know, maybe now, but back then, I don't think he got the proper respect at all. It's like John Carpenter. It's like...
I went to the head of the studio and they said, thank you, goodbye. And I was taken off the film, and it came out a couple of years later. So my first Hollywood adventure I was fired from and wound up sitting on a shelf for a year.
So did you find a community of like-minded filmmakers or people to be part of? I guess the Chicago guys were coming up around that time, and...
Well, what happened was we were all at Warner Brothers. Marty was out there editing a rock and roll documentary called The Medicine Ball Caravan. George Lucas had shot 11 THX 1173. Francis was there, and Steve and I met through girlfriend Margot Kidder.
Huh.
So we were all sort of hanging around together at the beginning of the 70s.
Whoa, so he dated Margot Kidder? Interesting. Lois Lane.
And is there a time where you started to feel like you fit? Because you're kind of a New York guy. You're kind of a...
Well,
feel
I
like an East
made a
Coast
lot of
filmmaker.
independent features, and
Yeah.
my first, second studio picture was Carrie. That was my 10th feature, so I'd been sort of, putting money together independently for quite a while. And then I sort of went on a roll. I did The Fury for Fox, which was mildly successful. Then I went back to Sarah Lawrence and made taught for a year, and we made a student film called Home Movies, which got some good reviews, but basically didn't go anywhere. And then I wrote Dress to Kill, and I had a really big hit.
So does that feel like a second act for you? I mean, it's...
No, my whole career has been punctuated by successes and then complete wipeouts.
And so they just react to the wipeout, the one wipeout after a few big hits with...
There's always been
You're done?
there's always been a big wipeout about every 10 years, complete wipeout.
Which is horrifying on every level, or
Well,
artistically?
you make movies, you know, most of them are going to fail.
Yeah. Well, that's, you've had more hits than most people, to say the least.
I've had a lot of hits, but I've sort of gone according to my own way and had many catastrophes.
So when something like Carrie happens, how do you end up back at Sarah Lawrence after that?
Well, because I was in New York and I was working on Dress to Kill, and I thought it would be nice to sort of pay back to the school that I had, you know, it helped me get started. So I basically taught this course for a year and we made this movie.
So is Fury where you feel like the DePalma signature as we now know it kind of started, or?
Well, The Fury was very close to the book by John Ferris. And it was my first really big budgeted movie, big studio budgeted movie.
So is, in terms of your style, in terms of what we see as your style, was there a moment where, or a film where you felt it was coming together, or you knew that it was something other than?
Well, it really started as far back as Sisters. Many people think Sisters is my finest film.
Well, great movie. And people,
Why aren't they all like Sisters? Sorry.
well, you had a pretty good defender in Pauline Kael. It was not, you had a little bit of support somewhere.
Yes, Pauline wrote a very nice mention of Greetings, which sort of got me started. But she was very mixed on my movies. She didn't like Scarface. She didn't like Obsession. So she would, you know, some of them she really liked, and she wrote really intelligent reviews. Some of them, I mean, the ones that she liked and the ones that she didn't like. Like, I think she called Scarface the movie for people that disliked DePalma films, or whatever it was.
But I mean, to me, I mean, I grew up in the Dress to Kill era. For me, that was my college years, and
The 80s.
yeah, I went through that period with your films being very critical in terms of my world. But there, you know, and the earlier films which I loved were things I saw on HBO. I wasn't even old enough to go to the movie theater to see them. But it did feel glossier in that 80s period. Like there was a different, like you were either spending more, there was more of a.
Well,
leap
there
into-
were some big studio films in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was Scarface that was in the 80s. Well, Body Double wasn't that big, but it was with Columbia Pictures. It was a studio picture. I made a whole series of studio pictures then.
Did you mind the controversy? I was there when they were picketing at the Ziegfeld
Oh
for
no,
Body
I've
Double.
always been in the midst of controversy, and it's never been pleasant.
So it's not something you court. It's not.
Oh, please.
Because there are a lot of filmmakers now who think that's a hip, cool thing to do. Is stir it up.
I've had it my whole career, either battling with the ratings board or being accused of a Hitchcock ripoff, a hack, you name it.
So is there any time where you felt like you weren't getting? I mean, I guess Untouchables is pretty universally liked and loved. No.
Yeah, everybody liked the Untouchables. That's true.
So does that make a difference to you? Are you paying attention? I guess you know what the people were saying. You're paying attention enough. Is it?
Well,
is that a lot of interest?
then you get a pass and you make Casualties of War. Nobody speaks to you again.
So there are people who love that movie,
Which
Casualties of War.
I know, but I took 10 years to get it made, and I didn't get reviewed particularly well, except for Pauline and
I like that movie.
a few other people, and it didn't do very well at the box office.
So ultimately, the money and the reviews and all that stuff, and to create the ups and downs of the career.
Absolutely. You make successful movies, you can do what you want, you bomb, and then you got to struggle to get back up again.
So in those last number of years where you've made, Redacted was, I guess, the last thing you made, and so it's been a while, is that just a matter of you not having projects you felt you had to do and chased, or were you
Well,
looking for money?
I spent a couple of years writing scripts in the using the technique of redacted. I did one that sort of was around the Jessica Lynch, fabrication of what happened to her.
Uh-huh.
And then I did one that was sort of based on the John Edwards Cates from the videos being made by Rael Hunter. But I couldn't get them financed. And ultimately, Creme de Mort came along, and I got back into making a thriller.
So how did that come along? Did you guys? You saw the movie first? Would be the first thing that happened.
Yes, they sent the movie to me, and I looked at it.
Did they send it to you with the idea of remaking it in
Oh
English?
yeah, because the producer was here with the original, and many distributors, American distributors, came to him and said, "We'd like to buy the rights to make an English version." And he said, "I'm not going to sell the rights. I'm going to make my own English version."
So he came to you with a movie,
Yes.
and did it feel like a natural fit right from the beginning?
Yeah, I liked the characters. I thought the women were fascinating. I liked the way that they were trying to outsmart each other. And I thought I could improve some of the things. I didn't like the fact that the murderer was revealed halfway through the picture.
Mm-hmm. And so you got pretty easily the two actresses? I mean, you got two of the hottest
Oh,
actresses
no,
in town.
no, it was not easy.
No.
We tried for quite a while because we tried to cast it the way the first one was, with older and younger actresses, and we couldn't get somebody to play the Christine part. Maybe because it was such a kind of nasty, manipulative woman, a great character. I mean, those are great characters to play. I don't know why actresses should shy away from them. And we just, fortunately, another director was considering Numi for his film, and he had all these DVDs that Numi had sent him. And I ran into him in the village, and we had lunch, and he said, you should think about Numi. This is after almost a year trying to get the right combination. And I looked at Numi's Swedish films, and she did some incredible things in these small Swedish films. And I said, this is the right girl. And we approached her. She read the script. She wanted to do it. Unfortunately, she had been working with Rachel on Sherlock Holmes. They liked working with each other, and they decided to do it together.
So this was already, Numi had many options at that point, I guess.
Oh, absolutely.
And chose this, so that's something. And Rachel, of course, has all the options in the world also.
Exactly.
So do you think they just wanted to work with you, or do you think they...
I think they liked the material, they liked the characters, and they wanted to work with me.
So what is that relationship like? Because the tag, which I think is surely unfair, is that you're somehow misogynistic, or, that you don't love women.
I like working with women. I like photographing women. The girls had a very definite point of view how they wanted to play the characters. Not exactly like the script, and we had to adapt to their kind of interaction during the week of rehearsal.
So you spent a week actually doing the script or improvising, or how do you go about that?
We would rehearse, and I got a hold of the original screenwriter, Natalie Carter, and she came in, and the two of us kind of saw what the girls were doing and adjusted the script to how they wanted to interact with each other.
So would you say your approach on this movie is similar to the approach you've used on other movies?
No, it was quite different because the girls really had an idea of what they wanted to do with each other. And we had to adjust the script for that. And what they did with each other was quite good. So I just wanted to, you have to be able to adjust to what the actors are doing, because that's what's going to go on film no matter what you planned before.
So when did that hit you as a director in the
70s,
the 80s, or the beginning?
Oh no, you see that through your whole career. You have to adjust to what the actor is doing. You have to watch what they're doing and then adjust the material for them, because that's what appears on film, not your ideas of what it should be.
So what is your favorite part of the process? I mean, do you like everything that leads up to shooting? Do you love the shooting the most?
Well, I planned scrupulously. I had a long time to lay this all out. It was all storyboarded. the art director shot all the camera positions and all the locations. And I tried some things I hadn't done before, juxtaposing the murder against the ballet. And I did this kind of elaborate dream sequence at the end, which I've done in other movies, but I had to use specific kind of obsessive guilt things that were in Nomi's subconscious.
I got the feeling actually watching the movie, and it's the split screen that you've been doing for a long time already, but it did strike me that you were doing 3D before anybody else was doing. You have the two sides of the brain working in two different places at the same time, which is much more interesting than 3D, I guess.
Well, it's very important to feel that Nomi's at the ballet, and we have to put you at the ballet, and the ballet is so entrancing, and the murder's got to kind of creep up on the side.
So do you have an academic view of directing at this point? Is having time between films create a different perspective, or is it?
I'm a great student of directors' careers, yes.
And you still love movies the way you did 40 years ago?
Oh
50
yeah,
years ago?
oh absolutely. I mean, I still have ideas. I still want to put things together. It's as long as the brain is going, I'll be making movies.
Is it different now for you in terms of just making the movie? There are a lot of. It's funny how American directors kind of seem to be stopped from working after 60, whereas in England there are 5 or 6 directors of your caliber, of your range, that are still working in their 70s. They seem to be age bias in this country much more than other places.
Well, as William Wyler used to say, once you can't walk anymore, or your legs give out, that's when you've got to hang up your riding crop. So, no, I just have, I have ideas all the time, and I put them together, and when I'm not actually directing, I'm usually writing something, and it just keeps on going on. I guess when my brain shuts down, that'll be the time to get in the rocking chair.
Does the technology change anything at this point for you, or is it?
Well, of course, the editing technology is fantastic,
Yeah.
the digital editing, and now with the digital cameras. The interesting thing in relationship to young directors is that you can make a movie for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is, in my day, you had to raise thousands of dollars, and for a feature, maybe $100,000. These days, you could make a movie for $5,000.
Uh-huh.
So all you have to do is be able to write a script and get the actors and shoot.
So you're not fighting the technological change. For you, it's okay.
No, it's great, but the problem is you better have some talent because after you've made your movie, if it's junk, there you are.
So did you embrace the digital changes?
Oh
from the
yeah,
beginning?
because I'm a kind of a technically oriented person.
Mm-hmm.
I know all about how all this works, and I'm very interested in how these the technical things, which is redacted, uses all kinds of forms that were developed on the web.
Mm-hmm. So the people who are fighting for, desperately hanging on to film, which seems to be going away, sadly, but is going away, not a fight you want to get into, or?
Well, there'll be museums to preserve the great movies.
Right.
Unfortunately, the ones that require large screens, like Once Upon a Time in the West and, David Lean pictures, you have to see in, huge screens that they don't really make sense on your phone or your iPad. And that's unfortunate. But,
You should never watch a movie on your phone unless you're like on an airplane or something. I mean, iPad, depends on the size, or like laptop, but yeah, I've never watched a movie on my phone, ever. It's like, I have no interest in that, but
with 3D and high definition projection, there'll always be places for the big movie because that's the way you make money, by getting people to leave their couches and go into a theater.
Well, your movies are pretty intimate and also have sides to them. They have visual sides to them. So do you not want people to watch your movie on an iPad, or does it make a difference to you one way or the other? It's just another way of delivering the
Well,
content?
I'm a visual stylist, so I like to, use the big screen to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
So iPad movies basically come out of television, where everything is shot in close-ups, and
Right.
that just puts me to sleep.
So are you a person who looks back much at your stuff? I mean, obviously, Carrie's being remade right now, and everybody else looks back at your work, but do you look back at your stuff?
Not really. We don't really look at our old movies. They pop up on television or cable.
Mm-hmm.
And we watch them for a while and say, that's pretty good. But it's not like on your best and beloved hit shelf do you drag down your movie to look at every year or so.
Right. Well, it's like we just had a conversation recently with Billy Friedkin, and he doesn't look back a lot, but he still we'll have a very long conversation about The Exorcist, or a very long conversation about French Connection, and the couple things that have become iconic, and you have a dozen of them yourself. Is that a distraction from doing new work, or is it just?
No, it's very it makes you feel very good that movies of yours have lasted 20, 30 years. People are still talking about them, so that means, they've stood the test of time. And most of my movies have been badly reviewed when they came out. And after a decade or two or so, suddenly they're considered masterpieces.
Sounds like John Carpenter. He's like, man, I wish people saw him at the time. I would have made more money. That sounds like John Carpenter, kind of. Yeah.
Well, so at least there's vindication. Do you feel?
Yeah.
And did you go see the musical of Carrie?
No.
Was you had any interest at all, or is that just?
I am interested,
So-
but both times the musical was on, one I was in Thailand shooting Casualties of War, and the last one I was in Berlin shooting this movie.
So the Berlin thing, I mean, it's fascinating that certain directors have now Berlin has become a hotspot for making films. Is it just that the funding and the tax breaks and everything else in the studio?
Well, it's a couple of things. It's obviously because some money is coming out of Germany, but they have fantastic crews there, and actors, and locations. It's a great place to work. I had a very good time there.
So I guess this movie was shot particularly in one building that was architecturally interesting.
Famous office building.
So did you just scout like you would scout anything else, and you'd found it and fell in love?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I had a very talented German art director, and she and I would go all over town looking at things and deciding what to use.
So what is the post experience for you? I mean, at this point, obviously, it's technologically different, but there's always been a lot of visual elements in your films. Has it changed? Is it now that the technology is where it's at and you have a film like this, and obviously a lot is happening in post in terms of putting it together and making it work the way you want it to work? Has that changed since, say, the mid-'80s?
In
Doing those
post-production?
films? Yeah. Or the idea of how you
Well,
put together the quilt?
Split screen is very easily, or more easily done with the modern digital equipment. I mean, when I did Dionysus in '69 and had to do the whole movie in split screen, you had two, moviolas running simultaneously. Let me tell you, it was a nightmare to edit.
But does the way you conceive post and how you put everything together, the artistic
Well, the
choices change?
advantage of the digital technology is you work extremely fast. I mean, I had basically had a cut of this movie the day I finished shooting.
A cut that you liked, or just the raw?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I mean, obviously we refined it over the next 6 to 8 weeks, but the movie was basically there.
So could you make? Do you feel like it's time you could make more movies? You could make, do a movie every other year and knock them out a little bit more?
No, I'm not a big, I don't like shooting that much. I like planning, I like writing, I like editing, but I'm a kind of, quiet, solitary creature. So being on a set with, 100 people asking, what do I do next is not my pleasure zone.
Was it ever?
No, was never.
And was there ever a time where you saw yourself as Brian DePalma in a boldface name? Or, the icon that you are was part of your own thinking, or were you always
Never really
grindstone?
thought about it because I sort of, travel amongst the people all the time. I don't have a bubble around me to protect me. I come to this festival every year and walk around and go to see screenings, like you or anybody else.
So is that a work ethic that you just had from being a kid, or is that...
No, I just like the fact of, I think the worst thing in the world is to be too well known, so people are running up to you all the time. I mean, that would be a nightmare for me, because I like to walk around and, see things.
So that must have happened for a while at some point, no?
Not really. The people don't really pay much attention to me, which is good. I mean, every once in a while somebody will come up to me, but it's very seldom.
So you've had this... your films are very brash and loud and
Yeah.
memorable in that way, but that's not you. Or it must be part of you somewhere in there. Yeah?
No, I'm basically a grand opera visual stylist. I like beautiful and dramatic things.
So say hello to my little friend is not something you would ever say.
That's Oliver Stone's line.
And was that movie, since I brought it up, as fun to make as it feels?
No,
Or was
that
it painful?
was very, very difficult because the Cuban community not only didn't want us in Florida, they threatened us. So we ultimately had to leave.
And was that always as...
Because you have an Italian playing a Cuban man.
of the moment? I mean, because you really it was right on top of the Mariolitos coming to Miami. Was you making that film, and you kind of it turned in on very specific history of that time. It wasn't far away from it.
That's correct. Nobody liked that movie when it came out, and we had to fight with the ratings board so we wouldn't get an X. The screenings, people would walk out. It was attacked on every side, so you can imagine.
But you never liked those fights. You're saying.
Like them? Why would you like them?
Because there are people who feel you're an Asian provocateur, and that your film, many of your films are right on that edge of NC-17 and R, and very emotionally disturbing, and
It's just the way I see things.
so you're the quiet guy at the end of you're the no, not the Mo Green. You're the Hyman Roth of filmmaking.
Yeah.
You're the quiet man who quietly goes and can knock down
No,
the
I have
entire-
ideas. I have them in my head, and I try to get them on film, and they obviously disturb a lot of people. I also have political ideas that the establishment is never too happy with.
So is there a film where you felt you hit that opera, that magical opera the best?
No, there's sort of elements in all of them. I'm pretty happy with most of my films. I had a long career. The fact that I'm still working at 72 is good.
But you still have so to speak, the passion.
Exactly.
It's still there. And it sounds like people still really want to be part of the Brian DePalma experience.
That's correct.
It's a good thing.
Yes.
I guess that's part of the. Are you proud? I guess you must be proud of that.
Hey, to be at my age and still making movies, absolutely.
But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting interview, and I'm a big fan of De Palma. So, yeah. I haven't seen his recent movies, but I haven't seen that one they're talking about, the one shot in Berlin. Maybe I'll try and check that out. But anyways, comment below. Let me know what you think, if you're a fan or not. Probably some of my favorites are Blowout. The Untouchables is pretty good. I wish they talked about Mission Impossible a little bit, because I really liked the first Mission Impossible that he made. Carrie, Dress to Kill, but anyways, that's about it. I'll see you next time.